people can be trusted. People know what they need and people know what to do. The narrative is still that people who are experiencing poverty are poor because they don't know how to handle money. And that's not true. And we've proven that to be untrue time and time again.
I present to you a mom of two, an advocate for an entire city, and today's special guest, Mayor Courtney Welch. Thank you for joining us on the Fireside Chat.
I'm so excited to be here.
You currently live in Emeryville. You call it your home. Can you tell us a little bit what it's like and what you enjoy about Emeryville?
I actually grew up in Oakland, which is just right over the border. I mean, I could walk there from my house. And so Emeryville, we're really a unique city because we're small. We have about a population now, about 14,000 people, but we are right in between Oakland, which is obviously a major metropolitan city, and Berkeley, which is a major metropolitan city. Both Oakland has over 400,000 residents. Berkeley, I believe, is at 130,000. So we've got, and they're both world known cities. And of course, having San Francisco just to the west of us, we are a small city, but we are very much urban, and have some of the amenities, but also some of the challenges that come with being in an urban core. What I really like best about Emeryville is that we're just central. We're close to absolutely everything you'd want to do in this region. We're not far from the more rural areas. If you want to go off to Tahoe or go off to the mountains, we're not too far. We're close to 3 major international airports. You could get out of town, you can stay in town. We have a great retail center, we have great restaurants. My predecessors on the city council had done so much around pedestrian and cyclist infrastructure. So it's very easy to get around, whether you're walking, biking. We have the Emery Go Round, which is our free transit that will take you all throughout town, but it also goes up to MacArthur BART, which is in Oakland. So if you want to take BART, you can get all around the Bay Area on BART. So we're really close to everything. We have everything here, but we also still have a nice, like, small town local feel. And it's just really, I feel like it's just the center of the universe.
You mentioned Bay Street and a number of other things. What's your favorite thing to do on a typical Saturday in Emeryville?
Well, definitely my kids like to go to a park and hang out, get some outside time. I have 2 boys, so it's very critical that they get their outside time, definitely over the weekends when it's not raining. So we might go up to the Emeryville Center for Community Life, which is also where our schools are. We have our K-8 school, Annie Yates, and then Emory High, but on the weekends, there are a very large soccer field. And also after school, it's open to the public. So my boys love to play soccer. We can just go right up there and they can run around to their heart's desire and just hang out. And it's nice, new turf. And so we go and hang out there. Um, if I'm trying to be a grown up and do adult time, definitely Bay Street, like I said, has a lot of amenities. We recently opened up quite a few new restaurants, and I'm still working my way through all of them. But one of my favorite, Tipsy Putt, it's actually indoor miniature golf. They have a speakeasy that is hidden inside of Tipsy Putt called Trophy Club. The Amtrak station is right here. That's another great thing for folks if you want to take the train all throughout the state of California. The Emeryville Amtrak is the busiest one on the West Coast.
Mm.
So come here and you can go anywhere on the Amtrak. We're very flat, so it's very easy to get around, not too strenuous, very good walking areas here.
Now, just a minute ago, you mentioned your two sons. So let me give you a little bit of time to brag about your two boys.
Oh my gosh. So I have two boys. They both have the same birthday, March 14th. They're exactly 5 years apart. I love them. They are very much the same, but they are so different. Caleb, he is into computer design. He actually participated in a summer camp and he knows how to build Roblox experiences. I have everything set up, as far as parental monitoring, and I kept getting notifications that he was earning Roblox from the experiences he was building on the platform. So whatever he's designing, I know I kind of get it. I'm not going to pretend like I completely understand it, but he's building experiences that people like to participate in, and he is earning Robux, which is their in-game currency from the experiences that he builds. So he is very analytical. He loves math. He loves science. He is frequently asking me questions that I have to Google. So things either I don't remember or I never learned them. So he's very smart, very quiet, but he's very kind and he has really such a calming spirit to be around. People just love him. I'm always like, oh, is he being shy? And people are like, no, he's just such a mellow, wonderful spirit to be around. My younger son, Cruz, is actually the complete opposite. He's still very kind and very sweet. He's very outgoing, lots of energy. He says hi to everyone. He's very athletic. He loves Space Jam. I mean, he's definitely like me and Caleb are a little bit of homebodies. Like we can hang out around the house. Cruz keeps me from just turning into a complete homebody because he needs to go outside. He needs to be outside. But he's so sweet. He gives the best hugs. He's always excited and happy to see like whatever family member, it doesn't matter how long he hasn't seen you, he gives you such a big hug and like wants to give you a kiss and it's like, how are you? Like, come play with me. So they have such different personalities, but they're very just kind and wonderful kids. Um, they do fight quite a bit, but I'm hoping as they get older, they'll always remain close.
What ages? You said they were 5 years apart, but what ages?
Next month, they'll be 9 and 4.
9 and 4. What do they think about their mom being mayor of Emeryville?
I don't think Cruz really recognizes it. I know he knows like I go to meetings and we have hybrid meetings. So he's seen me on Zoom. And so he'll like, Mom, you were on TV. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was at a meeting. So he understands like I go to the meetings. Um, Caleb was a lot older when I first ran for office and Cruz was 1, so he doesn't remember really too much of what was going on at the time, but Caleb was 6, so he remembers me running for office and like winning and the whole thing. And so he knows that I'm the mayor. I don't know if he thinks it's too much of a big deal. And I'm actually okay with that. I think like your kids keep you humble, and that's really cool. Like I don't he's just kind of like, okay, mayor, like whatever. But I know probably as he gets older, he'll have more of appreciation for it. And he does ask me questions sometimes about what do mayors actually do? And I'll point things out to him as far as like projects we're working on. And so I make sure I explain what it is that I do and what mayors do just, outside of me. And so I don't know if he thinks it's cool or not. But again, maybe as he's older, he'll have more of an appreciation for it.
Well, let me take time now to just congratulate you on being mayor of Emeryville.
Yeah.
And more than just the title, just congratulations on the responsibility and all that comes with that. Can you tell us what it's like and what excites you about the role?
Well, I mean, what it's like is interesting because I'm actually a part-time mayor. So many councils across the state of California, we all know mayors in bigger cities, they're the mayor and that's their full-time job. And same with many of their council members, it's a full-time job. Here we get a small stipend for being on the council, and we do an annual reorganization. So we will annually select who serves as mayor and vice mayor, and some other closer municipalities, Albany, for example, they also conduct the same process. So I knew it was a possibility that once I got on council that at some point that I would be mayor, and that it would be not just personally significant, but then historically significant, being the first Black woman to hold the role. So I'm excited about, one, when you are the first to do something, you then have the sole responsibility of making sure that you are then not the last, and it doesn't take so long for someone who looks like you or other um, demographics, ethnicities who haven't served either on the city council or as mayor, that you're bringing them along with you. So I'm excited about, one, okay, we've crossed this threshold, and now it's time for me moving forward to line up the second, third, fourth, and fifth Black woman mayor of the city, whomever they may be. And so I'm excited about just that piece of it initially. But really, it's like a really good time to be the mayor of the city. Emeryville for a long time was overlooked. It was mainly industrial for a very, very long time. Of part of its history was actually founded. The reason we're sandwiched in between Berkeley and Oakland is because our founders wanted to keep open their gambling halls. And Oakland was a Christian city. So if you look at our borders, it's this interesting rectangular shape. And it's because they drew the borders to make sure that there were no churches within the city limits. So we were known, I mean, we've been known as the most rottenest city on the West Coast. And so there's this kind of very seedy history that kind of comes along with Emeryville, which is very interesting. It always makes for good party stories to tell about some of the more seedier happenings in Emeryville's history. But after that initial piece, it was very industrial. There was only, very few people living here. And then you saw this transition to having big box stores, more retail, but not really focusing on developing the city into being a place where people live. It was more like of a stopover city. When my parents were a younger child-free couple, it's like people lived in Emeryville if if they were single or maybe a child-free couple, but then once people wanted to perhaps have children or expand their family, they moved to Berkeley or to Oakland. And now we're seeing that shift, especially in our newer housing stock being more family friendly, having 3 bedrooms and some 4 bedrooms. So making it more not just some place where you come and shop or drink, it's a place where you can come and have a family and raise your children, and you can grow old here. And so I'm excited just to see how we've transitioned even over my lifetime into being a place that is more focused on people living here versus just businesses existing, industry existing. We're a city where people live and can grow and can thrive.
Do you think that happened by default, or were there intentional efforts to kind of change that or shift that?
No, it's definitely been intentional. It's been absolutely intentional, making sure that we were adding to the housing stock. I mean, it's no new news for anyone, I'm sure on this fireside chat, that we're having a housing crisis. And so looking at it from one, we need to, even though we're a small city and we have a very small regional space to work with, we're only 1 square mile. We don't have that much, but we need people here. And we have people who come in and work. Like I said, we have a lot of retail, we've got restaurants, we've got businesses here. We have a strong biotech industry here, but people can't really live here. And that's kind of unique to the area. People live in Oakland and work in Oakland. They live in Berkeley and work in Berkeley. Same Richmond if you're going up the way, Contra Costa County. But it's like, how can we get it where we have so many people coming in to work, but then they leave and they go back to wherever? Where can we make it where people can come here and you can live and work in Emeryville? So I think the shift was intentional. And I think, part of it, more recently, the shift has been around the housing crisis. But I think the initial shift was having a strong tax base, to be honest, making sure that people were buying homes and paying property tax and living here in a real way, instead of just coming here for a work shift or coming here to socialize. It
Mhm.
was, okay, we've got the social piece down, we've got the employment piece down, but how can we make sure that people can live here? So it definitely was intentional, and you can see how intentional it was over the transitions, because communities are created. That is the absolute truth. We create the communities, and the reflection of what is in your community is a reflection of the values of its leadership. And really its residents as well. But at the end of the day, you are guiding and crafting and creating the policies that will either allow or disallow the community to create itself in such a way.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious. A lot of our UpTogether members across the country take pride in setting goals and then taking strides to accomplish those goals. Can you take us to a time when becoming mayor was your goal? What led you to make that your goal, and what strides did you take to accomplish that?
Well, I think the more important piece, it wasn't that I knew at some point, you have to be nominated, and then your colleagues have to vote and approve you being mayor or vice mayor. So really it was, my intention always was to build and foster positive relationships with my colleagues, because that is, outside of being mayor, that is always needs to be your number one. I guess maybe we don't want to number it, but it should be a key goal, is to have a positive working relationship with your colleagues. And that does not mean that you're always going to agree. And that doesn't mean that there might not be debates or discourse, but your colleagues trusting you, you trusting them trusting you, um, feeling like knowing that the lines of communication are open, and that whatever conversations are going to take place, whatever debates might take place, are always going to be rooted in respect, and that the belief that we are on the same team, we are a body, and we all have to work together, and making sure that we are working from the same value standpoint, which is that we're here to serve the community. And so that was always the goal, that I came in best foot forward, came in looking to build relationships, looking to earn trust, to build trust, and to know that, for my colleagues to know that I respect them, I honor them, I see them, and that I'm here to work alongside them. So that was the goal. And then, because I have done that, it was not an issue for me um to be nominated. And then and in return, being able to nominate and vote for and work alongside other colleagues as well.
You mentioned having this great respectful discourse with your colleagues and with your background in advocacy, whether that's racial justice or economic equity. You have to have an appetite for having discourse with colleagues. First, where did that advocacy come from? And then second, what happens when you reach some of those roadblocks in those conversations with colleagues who don't really want to engage in those kind of conversations?
I got involved in housing advocacy because Caleb and I, when he was quite young, he was about 6 months old, we got displaced from our rental in West Oakland. And so we had to relocate to San Diego temporarily because I could not find housing that I could afford or that I was even eligible for. I was coming off of maternity leave and was working part-time and actually making a very good part-time salary. But at the time, the rents had just exploded in West Oakland, and then the requirement was that you're making three, sometimes, 2.5, 3 times the amount of rent. So it's like even a studio was going for $2,500, and it's like, okay, I'm not making $7,500 at the moment because I'm working part-time, but it didn't matter. And so I just figured, I had the realization that it's like, wow, this actually it was very easy for me to become destabilized, like way too easy. And people think about who becomes homeless, who becomes housing insecure, and they have all these ideas about people either being financially irresponsible or maybe having addiction challenges or mental health challenges. And it's like, no, this is everyday folks who are working, who, might have a certain level of leadership in the community, leadership at their organizations and where they work. And if it's that easy for someone like me with all of my privileges, all of my access to become destabilized, I'm like, what in the hell else is going on when you take one of those away? If you're living with a disability and you're relying on social security and you're not making hardly any money at all, or you're in a role that is essential but unfortunately historically underpaid, what happens to everyone else? And so that is where my career trajectory shifted into housing advocacy. And the thing about housing is it's a very hot topic for so many reasons. And I was actually speaking to a group of fellows at an organization, and I said so much of housing is really embedded in the American psyche as a way to display the American dream. And the ideas that we have around housing and what housing actually represents for a person is far more emotional than we realize. And when people just try to use, hey, if you're in a housing crisis and you need this many units because you have this many people, it's just math. It's really math. But the way we've been socialized around housing, what type of housing, where we live, how we live, it's far deeper than just math for so many people, especially this a bigger push around upzoning and making sure that we're utilizing land in a way that allows for housing, especially housing for individuals and households with lower incomes. The focus has always been around the American dream being a single family home. So people will reject this notion of even things like duplexes, fourplexes, which depending on how you design it, if you're just driving by, it'll look like a single family home. You won't know that it's a multifamily property. But the idea that you are not on this lot in your single family home with your partner and your 2.5 kids, people reject that because it's so much of it is tied in our socialization around who we are and what success looks like and what does it truly mean to be an adult, what does it mean to be accomplished. And so I say that to say, when you're meeting these roadblocks, it really takes time, and it takes a lot of listening and really understanding. And I think it's like important for people, even if you're in like political advocacy, to have a level of training around sociology, history, anthropology, all of those were human services where you're really understanding psychology and human behavior, because then that gives you better tools to navigate around some of these roadblocks. And if you're not understanding or identifying why the roadblock is, or really understanding, like, really, like I said, history, especially American history. And when I say American history, I mean the real history where so much of what we're experiencing around economic justice, housing justice, so much of it is rooted in racism and sexism and the resistance around, why can't we just make sure people aren't homeless? It's like, well, classism, elitism, racism, people their ideas about who's experiencing homelessness and why, as I mentioned before, you have to understand really the socialization around some of these issues, and then you'll be able to navigate around some of those barriers and some of that resistance around change.
Mhm. Um, thank you for that answer, or both of those answers. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how to influence uh, some of those barriers, those roadblocks, how to influence and actually create the kind of change needed in, say, the housing system, or any systems that are right now really kind of handicapping individuals who are living with limited income or experiencing financial hardship.
One is you have to understand people's motivations, and you have to be willing to, not in a way that takes away from your values, but you have to be able to shift your argument depending on who your audience is. One example I always like to use is with business owners, small business owners. I talk about how housing affordability, or lack thereof, impacts what people can afford. If people are using 50% or more of their income towards housing and they barely have anything left over after bills, they don't have any money to go out and spend on businesses. So that is why they should be invested in housing affordability. That's why they should be advocates for things like housing that is more affordable for low income families and individuals, because it frees up more money for people to spend on businesses. Now, that's not pulling away from my values. I still want to make sure that people who have lower incomes can afford housing, but depending on the audience, business owners, small and big, for them, it's dollars and cents. So I'm like, hey, this is why this should matter to you, because this is dollars and cents. If they don't have dollars and cents to spend with you, how do you think that's going to impact your business? So you have to understand people's motivations. You have to make sure that you understand the issue first and foremost. But that's where relationship building comes in, meeting with people, not demonizing one person on one side. Oh, and there's some lines in the sand. There are people who are just out to cause harm in our communities. But there are so many more of us who are right in the middle, and we all have different motivations, but we all want to see the same results. And so that's where the relationship building comes in, where you're sitting down, you're learning about people, you're learning about their journey, you're learning about their goals, and then you can see where that alignment is. And then you can make the argument where you have that alignment, and then you can understand what their motivations are, and you can explain to them why granted, your motivations might be different than mine, but our goals should be the same because it's going to impact us both in the same way on a positive level. So that's I always tell people you need to talk to people. You need to talk to people, even people you think that you might not have anything in common with. I mean, we're all humans. We're all living here on this big planet together, but our experiences where they might vary because of who we are and what we look like and maybe where we live. But the human experience isn't that vastly different. It really isn't. Your experiences are, but really our motivations are really what we want. In my mind is people want to feel valued. They want to feel safe. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like they have opportunities to do whatever they want to do as far as their goals. All of us really pretty much feel that way. And yes, the specifics might vary, but those are what I see when I look at everyone, when I talk to everyone that I talk to. All of us really do have the same motivations, and we're not that different, and our goals aren't that different. But when you don't talk to people and actually listen to understand, there's these walls that get built up, and then you have this dichotomy where it's like you can't, they're anti this or they're pro that, and it's never that simple. But when you're not getting to know people, you're coming up with all types of ideas and narratives and assumptions in your head, and you're never giving yourself or them an opportunity to prove you wrong, honestly.
I love that answer. Can we switch gears for a second? I'd love to ask if you remember how UpTogether or FII at the time got on your radar.
This is the wildest story, and this is why I always tell people like to just listen for stuff. I was in the grocery store with Caleb after work one night, and there was an UpTogether group actually meeting. It was a like a Safeway with a Starbucks area, so they were sitting meeting at the Starbucks area, and I had just went and got something to drink, and I could hear them talking about housing, and of course it's like I work in housing, and it was a group of four women, and they were all women of color. And so I had walked over and introduced myself, and I said, I don't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard you all talking about housing, and I work in housing, and I just wanted to give you my card if anyone's looking for any resources around housing. And one of the women said, oh no, actually we're a part of FII, and it's an organization that invests in families. And she gave me the information, and I'm like, oh, I had never heard of it. And of course, FI was rooted in Oakland. And I said, oh, I've never heard of this, and had followed up with her and had a conversation. And she explained to me like what the process was. And it's like you get a group together and you all really just support one another. At the time, we were living in Oakland Elizabeth House, which is transitional housing for mothers who have experienced homelessness. And so I had brought it, we had our weekly meetings, and I had brought it to the group of mothers. It was 10 of us. So 4 wanted to participate in FI with me. So we had went just down over there to Preservation Park where the headquarters was when in Oakland, and we did our orientation and we got started um, um, with FI as a participation family with our group. So that was way back then, and then had stayed involved and became a community building fellow in 2018. And so, yeah, that is actually, so being nosy essentially paid off in that moment because I was just had overheard that participation group's meeting just by chance. So that's actually how I got introduced to UpTogether way back then.
Well, I'm glad you were nosy, and thank you for the contributions to your group over the years, surveys you've taken, and all of those good things. Why do you feel UpTogether is impactful?
The one element that always stuck out to me was just the level of trust. And this idea that people experiencing poverty can be trusted with their own money because they know what they need. And we've known this, and people who are experiencing poverty know this, but the narrative in our society is that if you are poor, it is because you have done something to make yourself poor, or that you're not trying hard enough to be rich, or just do better. And the focus was always on, we trust you to know what you and your family, your loved ones need, what your community needs. And it was like revolutionary as someone who had been on CalWorks, been on, utilized SNAP, food stamps, and you're consistently reporting, you're consistently being monitored, right? Because the idea is that you need to be monitored, that they're always looking for ways in which you try to outsmart the system, instead of looking at it as, this is an investment in you and your safety and your stability. And it's true. We know that. I mean, we've always known that, but it's every single guaranteed basic income pilot. All of them say the same thing. What do people spend their money on? Food, bills, their kids, work, education, getting something that they had needed and held off on, getting their wisdom teeth pulled, getting their kids braces, getting new tires for their car so they're not slipping and sliding out here in this rain, trying to get back and forth to work. Everything is, they have utilized the money to make their lives better, their families' lives better, show up better in their community. That's it. That's all. That's it. That literally, that is it. Even if people are using things for, there was a post on LinkedIn, and it was, we talk about, oh, folks using guaranteed income to pay bills and do all these good things. But it's, hey, if you go and get your hair done or your nails done, and that helps you feel good and helps you look good, that is good. People feeling good and looking good and feeling their best is good for the community too, because making sure that your mental health, we know the impacts of money on mental health. It's like people just feel better. They feel more relaxed. When you don't have money, one of the main areas of stress in people's lives is financial. It's one of the main reasons people divorce is behind finances. Not having enough money, and it's not even a lot of money. That's the thing. It's not even a lot of money. It's all the GBI pilot programs, it's like $500 to $1,000. That's nothing. If you gave me $1,000, I could get through it in an hour. Really, it's not that much money, but that's the point. It's not even that much that makes so big of a difference in people's lives, in a community. And so this, just the fact that it's not that much money makes a big difference. And then that people can be trusted. People know what they need and people know what to do. But then the narrative is still that people who are experiencing poverty are poor because they don't know how to handle money. And that's not true. And we've proven that to be untrue time and time again.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for putting us into your schedule. Thank you for the full circle in your life, and being able to use that to inspire others as well. And just thank you for what you're doing in Emeryville.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for all of the great work you're doing right here at home and then across the nation.